what's good, people? Izzy Max here, back again for a breakdown. This is cross-division play. So I am joined as always by Ryan.
I'm stuck with you. I'm trapped. Everyone send help. I'm in a closet. Give me food.
And our new guest, we have Hunter from the Blue Division.
Hey guys, how's it going?
We're just going to have a seamless transfer after the end of this video to the Blue Division one, so stay tuned for that. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and break down these games. Our first one, it was a forfeit. Enjoy Pukumukus. Great. Next, we have Matt versus John. So Hunter, go right ahead.
Yeah, sure. So this game was pretty interesting. I thought the show had a good showing from both players. I think Johnny's versatility on his team was actually kind of nice. Thank you for swapping, by the way. One thing that I really liked about Matt's team this week was the Archeops, and he's brought it a couple times to team preview, but he's never got or let it contribute to a win, I guess I could say. He's brought it against a couple people, and it finally got its time to shine. And he brought no item to take advantage of the acrobatics. So I thought that was actually really cool. It actually one-shotted Hitmonlee through Kova Berry. So it was actually kind of sick. At the end of the game, John had about a 50. Okay, I'm quoting Matt here, but I don't know if this is true or not. I'm pretty sure he had a 50-50 roll to win the game. He missed the Hydro Pump late in the game on the Diggersby with the Mantine. And if he would have hit it, I think it's a 50-50 roll.
I think it was like 60-40.
60-40, okay, yeah.
In
so
Matt's favor.
So he had
It's not written on the screen or anything. Don't read the tiny text.
Yeah, no.
We'll get to that.
Well, hey, listen.
Hey.
We'll get to that in a second.
Look, the viewers at home don't read. We're reading for you. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah. So we'll get to that in a second, okay? So, so he had like a 50-50 or a 60-40 roll to win that game. Either way, he had a decent shot if he hit that Hydro Pump. Unfortunately, it missed. That's what happens when you run these low accuracy moves, and in Pokemon, 80% accuracy is low accuracy every time. So, a couple of things about this game. Matt's I think Celesteela is performing super well with Matt at least. I think he's using it really good, along with the Grimmsnarl, and he's got Raichu for Lightning Rod and a Rain Mode. I think his team is really solid, and it's evolved a little bit. He went, he had Diggersby, he dropped it from Mamoswine, then he picked up Diggersby again. He's switching things around a little bit. I think he's doing a pretty good job. Onto Johnny's side of the match, though, I actually really like the Tail Whip tech on the Kangaskhan. I think it's really cool, especially if he's planning on maxing the Hitmonlee. I think that's really cool, and unfortunately, it just wasn't enough to break through the screens with Grimmsnarl and the bulky Celesteela and everything. Speaking of the screens, once the screens went up, John couldn't really do much, and it was well prepped on Matt's part, and also amazing copy pasta from Maxwell this week. I have to say, good job.
Okay? Yeah. So if you guys actually want to read that, pause the video, go for it. But I wouldn't. That's just basically Matt's breakdown of the game.
I will read some of it.
Yeah, go
because
for it.
I'm not that like that, So the big thing is that his main mode was always that Grimmsnarl, Celesteela, Diggersby with the Archeops. That was pretty much always the plan. Max Flying's really good into a lot of John's team, and Volcarona is weak to Archeops, so that works out pretty nicely. So that's part of the reason why there was a lot of rock coverage. Grimmsnarl was min attack to Fire Punch the Steela for the weakness policy proc, which is pretty cool. And that's pretty much the main notes. I will say something he talks about and something that Hunter hasn't talked about was that John did a really nice job game too, targeting around that weakness policy and focusing down the Grim early. That was really well played. I will say, if we ever do a low tier season, like I really want to sometime, I am most afraid to play John, because like what the hell, like that Kang was so cool.
Johnny and one of the teams we're going to cover later today. The low tier utilization of Johnny is insane.
Oh yeah.
So, no, it was a good set. Definitely one of the. This, I think, was one of the better games of the week. It was a lot of fun to watch. I think there was some good back and forth there. I would have loved to have seen a game 3, but Matt is in favor to win that. Not only because the roll, but because of Hydro Pump's accuracy. Matt is usually favored to win game 2 anyway, from a statistical standpoint. So I can't really call that, like, hacks or anything. It's in Matt's favor.
I will say, this is one of the closer matches Matt has actually had outside of his loss to Dina.
Yeah.
-3 is like one of the closer wins Matt's had.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So that's just a note. Kudo to both. John is just insane. Like I said, when I played him, you have to have your big boy panties on in prep, because God only knows what he's gonna do. So yeah, good shit. Moving on. Speaking of big boy panties, get ready. We have Jess versus Burst. Jess with a win +1, Burst with a loss at 0. Differential was really close. You see the teams on the screen. Jess brought her 3 lowest tiered mons, which was super cool. And Burst pretty much brought his core with the Maractus and kind of a tech Mr. Mime. You'll see Togetic here. It actually didn't come to a game. It wasn't supposed to. It was just there because of the trade, and it was funny. So good meme on Jess's end. Just moving forward here. Alrighty. I took notes. Burst, I'm sorry, I'm gonna roast your commentary because a lot of it, I feel like you misinterpreted, and I think it might help you if you had some feedback on what you kind of got wrong. So in game 2, if the Leaf Storm hit, you were dead on sights. It would have been a 3-on-2 with Landorus, Lopunny, and Lurantis still on the field, and the last 2 mons you had really couldn't deal with that combo. So that mattered a whole lot. I think you said it didn't matter a whole terrible much, but it did. Also in game 2, towards the end of the game, you said that Jessica's targeting was a mistake when she earth powered into the Urshifu. She knew it was a guaranteed kill on the Rhyperior, but the game would have lost. She would have lost anyway. So she went for the big play, trying to at least maybe just see how much damage the Urshifu would take from the earth power. Or it just KOs and she wins still. So that targeting was not a mistake. The 1 HP on Lurantis actually wasn't a roll. It was AV max bulk. There was very little offensive investment in it because...
Yeah, you actually got a high roll.
Yeah, you got 2 high rolls. 1 HP was actually lucky. She should have ended with more. Granted, it still would have died to the weather. Let's see here. And when you said that it was the read of your life or the read of your MDL career, in game 2, when she max flared the Maractus, she even said that was a missed target. Maractus isn't doing anything. She expected you to protect because Rhyperior was just dead on rights, but it was a Maractus. You target around that thing anyway because it's not going to do anything. So the correct play there was for her just to hit into your protect. But yeah, that's just kind of my stuff. While I'm watching your game, I got a little, not irritated, but there was just a lot of things that weren't correct. So I just wanted to ease up on some of your big commentary.
And some of it too is that you don't have the team sheet, so it's hard to, like, for example, the calcs on some of that stuff, like, you don't know that.
Lastly, iShard was free in the
noting.
Mimikyu. Pay attention to your items. That was actually big and could have won you game 3 if you would have remembered the Mimikyu was eject button.
I was really surprised you didn't do that. That was actually one of my couple notes.
Yeah, so you guys, take it away.
Go ahead, Ryan.
So I do approve. Jess did specifically steal my Mimi set. I was told as much. She stole my Mimi set I used against Chris Allen VGC. She thought it was cool. That was neat. I do have to say, Burst, your title of the video, Pun Game, was pretty on point. So your YouTube video had a good pun. I liked that. Game 2, I actually think Burst had a very solid back option. Having that, like, Centiskorch Rhyperior in the back, I think was actually decently commanding in game 2. And I think that was a really solid call. Like, I really thought that was a good play on him, and I thought that was good. Will-O-Wisp was very clutch here. It really mitigated a lot of Burst damage output. I loved the Lurantis and the Centiskorch this match. They were very good. I would personally be so afraid to bring something like Centiskorch into the Rhyperior team, but it worked great. overall, game 2 notwithstanding. I actually do want to comment that I do think the Jellicent was solid into a lot of Jess's usual options. So if Jess had gone for more of her hail mode, or if she had gone for like more or her more standard fast mode, I actually think the Jellicent would have been really, really good here. I actually really, really liked that bring, and I think it was actually good in the set as well. Which is just something I want to compliment Burst on, is that I do think that that's a mon that I think is easy to bring to the wrong game.
Yeah.
You can bring Jellicent to the wrong matchup. I thought that was a really solid week to bring something like that.
No,
so
his
compliments
prep was
on
solid.
that.
Yeah, his prep was solid.
I think the prep was pretty good on his end.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, Hunter.
Okay, well, one thing I just want to say is she hit 2 Will-O-Wisps game 3, so hacks.
I guess.
I just had to put that in there.
Throw it out the window.
Yeah, no kidding. One thing I really want to compliment Jess on was the choice scarf on Landris. I thought that was really cool, and I mean, obviously it was just outspeed. I mean, whatever she was trying to outspeed, I didn't really get that detail personally, but it was definitely for something.
Neolego.
It was the Neolego. Okay, makes sense. So I thought that was really cool, and I think it's like pretty rare to see a choice scarf on one of the genies at least, because they all have pretty good speed tiers. So it's like I just think it's really good prep, and it really shows that Jess is really thinking about in-game situations and stuff like that.
Real quick. That was the only reason that the Urshifu actually outsped Max Landorus, because it had like 0 speed investment.
Gotcha. Okay, so that makes sense. And I just want to piggyback on what Ryan said a little bit. I love the eject button and the lagging tail on the Lopunny, because one thing that I actually didn't even know about Lopunny was the ability Klutz, and it's so you're not affected. I think it's like, okay, so like if you have an assault vest, you don't have to only use attacking moves. Like it's not really affected by the effects of its item, right? So with the lagging tail, you can actually Klutz, and it won't be last in its priority bracket. Or I'm sorry, you can switcheroo with Klutz. So you won't be last in the priority bracket, and I think that's really, really solid. I just want to commend Jess for picking up Lopunny and using it pretty good. So yeah, that's it.
Yep. One quick thing, because even a lot of people in the chat and in the casting crew chat, Sensa Scorch never died to 1 max rockfall, and it was honestly the best way she could even hit the Rhyperior, because 2 power whips KO'd after setting terrain. So yeah, scary, but it works.
Yeah. I mean, I don't question things if they work, you know, like that's something we see a lot of that with Red Division, I think. But Jess is the one in Blue Division that she'll just bring something and you'll be like, huh, that's cool.
Yeah, but no, it was a solid game. It really was. It was one of the best ones we could watch this week, because the rest of them kind of sucked. But yeah, no, good game for both players. Lastly, I guess, this is Dan and Dark.
Yeah, this is my game.
Oh yeah,
bitches.
Go for it, Ryan.
All right, so you look, Dark has his usual crew with the Roserade. I do think Roserade was the correct bring this week. And then Dan is kind of also just has his usual crew, mostly. The Koffagrigus and Azelf. You don't always see, but I mean, you always see the Chomp Torn Prim Arcanine come like every week. Mostly just pretty standard stuff from these guys. Like, this is what you'd expect to see. So let's talk about the Bill of Rights. It guarantees freedom to a lot of people. This freedom allowed Dan to run safety goggles on himself because we're in America. And that's all game 1. So slightly unrelated to this video game and this breakdown we're playing, let's talk about Pokemon Unite, because that game is slapping right now. And in Pokemon Unite, Dan has been playing this little boy called Gibble. And Gibble's kind of a bitch. Like, it doesn't do anything. But then later on, it evolves and it becomes a Chomper. Now, in game 2 of this set, the Garchomp came in and it was a Chomper. And it really demonstrated why the Geneva Convention was adopted, just by like world powers in general. And it really made me rethink my entire life. In this essay, I will explain how the Geneva Convention, Pokemon Unite, and the Bill of Rights all intersect to form sort of the magnum opus of Western philosophy. So outside of that, I have real commentary, but I'll let Hunter and Maxwell go first, and then I'll do my real com.
Dude, you're
Hunter,
like,
go ahead.
you're like, here's my thesis statement, but you guys go ahead. Let's not finish the essay I'm starting. Here, you guys go. Yeah.
Look, man, it's a lot.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, there's some underlining circumstances to the point where this game had to be played on Showdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't actually get to see. I don't think anybody really got to see Game 1.
I did.
But yeah, well, Maxwell did because he was just there.
Yeah,
So well, so he can kind of vouch for this. But apparently, Azelf just 4-0'd, right? Like it was just a pretty big.
It was Azelf torn lead. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
pretty
just
much
Azelf's
went
lead. Yeah, and then Game 2 we saw it was a little bit closer. I think Morgan did a pretty good job adjusting. Listen, 3-0, or listen, a +3 win is closer than a +4. Okay,
Listen,
right?
his only kill came from hail.
Listen, okay. Listen, he got one. Okay.
Yeah.
At least he got one.
All right. Hang on. All right, here we go. Game 1, Dark switching was kind of bad, but like you can't really leave a Roserade in the face of an Azelf, so I get it.
No.
Granted, it switched into a Max Lightning, so my Lodic did. So that wasn't great, and just kind of steamrolled from there. Yeah, Game 1 was kind of a wash, and I don't really blame Dark for it. Like, he made the correct switch, because like I said, you can't leave Roserade in on an Azelf, but hey ho. And then in Game 2, Dark made a very good play. It was Hippowdon and Scarf Sand Rush Dracozolt.
Yep.
Holy crap.
Just so we get just so we could outspeed Garchomp under Tailwind. The problem I actually had with that is I think his targeting.
Yes, you needed to target down the Chomp.
Yeah, you have to.
You
have to Dragon Claw the Chomp, and then Ice Fang it, because that Chomp is going to knock out your thingy anyway. And then with the -1 Ice Fang, you actually would have killed the Garchomp, and then there's no max. Like, he only had one turn of max. And you have a -1 Hippowdon, but you're still able to be maxed. So yeah, just a little bit of
you could have clicked Quake into stuff and kept yourself alive and won the game, honestly. With what Dark had in the back, your Milo would have went in.
Yeah.
I do think it was a missed target that cost him Game 2, though. I actually really liked the Scarf Dracozolt and Sand to outspeed
super smart
under Tailwind. I thought that was super smart. I really liked the Max Hippowdon in Game 2 as well. I think Dark did this. I think the problem is that Dark basically prepped perfect for that situation and then had the wrong targeting. And I understand why he targeted what he did, but it just wasn't going to work out, because once that Hippowdon's at -1 and once the Arcanine comes in, I mean, it's just kind of over. I mean, even with the Milotic, I think Dan had great targeting by saying, you're not going to be able to protect this Milotic. I'm going to go in and beat this thing down right now before it becomes a problem for me, which I thought was really good targeting.
Yeah, and then real quick, at the end of the game, literally the last turn, the Arcanine actually got a burn on the Hippowdon, and if the burn wasn't there, Hippowdon actually would have killed both Arcanine and Garchomp, and then of course died to the Milotic.
Yeah.
Or died to the Prim. But it ended up dying to its own hail, so that's why you've seen a +6, -7.
Yeah, I mean, Game 2 was really, like, I only got to see Game 2, and Game 2 was pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd say overall. Like, I know we kind of are memeing this week a little bit, but legitimately that Game 2 was pretty good, and I thought the Scarf Sand Rush was, that's a brilliant bit of tech play.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic.
It's just that it's not going to work out, unfortunately, if the Dragon Claw doesn't go into the Chomp there, which I understand why you might not want to, because you might think, well, it might be Haban Chomp, or it might be
which I think
this
it actually
or that.
wasn't it?
I'm pretty sure it was.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
So
either way, that's the best play.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, it's all you can do, really, which is an unfortunately true state.
Yeah, but that's the game. I hope Morgan is starting to feel better.
Hard agree.
He got the human malware virus, so
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that's it for us. So I'm going to pass it on to the other guys. Hope you enjoyed this. And any last words from you guys? The groups will be different next week. So yeah, any last words?
Free me from my shackles. I need to be free. Get me away from Maxwell. I've been in his closet. It's been months and years now.
No.
Just let me out.
No.
Well, it was a pleasure doing this week with you guys. I just want to say that. It was fun.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, without further ado, I'll pass you on to the other guys. So peace.
Thanks, Maxwell. And for the second half of the breakdown, I am joined today by Matt and John. How are you two doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself, Dan?
I'm doing well as well. John, before we get into it, I do have one quick thing for you. I just need you to defend in 20 words or less your division's performance this week before we continue into the battles.
All right. Well, they did okay and their best. Period.
All right. Thank you very much for that, John. But without any further ado, I think we're just going to go ahead and dive into the battles. So, John, why don't you actually cover this first one for us between Hunter and Hector?
Great. Yeah. So Hunter and Hector went up against each other. You can see that Hunter came out with the W here, and it was a two-game victory. He had +6. Hector was at -6. And we can see the kind of breakdown here. Primarily, I mean, Hector brought the same 4 mons to both matches. The first thing that I see here, of course, on Hunter's end is maybe that standard strategy of Thunderous doing brutal swing on a Metagross for a weakness policy. Of course, every time you see a Snorlax, you're afraid of it doing belly drum and having the berry, and you're wondering how he's going to redirect that, perhaps. And of course, you see a really strong rain mode there with Kingdra and Politoed. On Hector's end, I mean, he's really got his really great core of Charizard, Vaporeon, and Duraludon that can cover each other's weaknesses pretty well. And I mean, there's a lot of offensive pressure, I think, and of course, Vaporeon is just a big wall to a lot of things that go on. But yeah, and then you see the Poltegeist, which I'm assuming like maybe some trick shenanigans or something like that. But yeah, just a pretty fairly even matchup from the beginning, but a little bit more straightforward on Hunter's end. So we can go on into the notes. Oh yeah, we don't have note slides in this. Oh, my bad. I'm used to all that stuff. Yeah, so some of the things I wrote down about this is that I really appreciated the build on the Thunderous. Of course, it brought Taunt, but it ended up living a Thunderbolt from Regieleki. And I know it was carrying the Focus Sash, but I don't know if that was intentional or not. But I mean, it did have a fair amount of bulk into it, and I mean, it put in a lot of work. One of the things I really, really liked in Game 2 that I think really sealed the deal for Hunter was there was this really great switch into Appleton on the first turn. And I mean, it made a lot of sense to me. So I'm assuming it was intentional because Snorlax had been already solidified or established, if you will, as a huge offensive threat because it got off the belly drum in Game 1. So it made sense that, Hector was probably going to target it. So he switched into the Appleton, and it ended up snowballing because, of course, the Appleton was like quad resistant. It put up the electric terrain, and then that gave Thunderous the opportunity to Oko Charizard very quickly. But a lot of really cool plays from both ends. But I mean, Hunter just he did get some hacks, of course, with the paralyzes and stuff like that. But he was pretty well prepared for Hector's end. What do you have to say over there, Matt?
Yeah, this one was a little bit unfortunate. We did see a couple of full pair, or rather Thunderbolt paras. The first one into a full para at least, which was a little bit rough. It just meant that Hector in Game 1 just basically didn't have a Dynamax and lost his Charizard right off the bat, so that was rough. I think it was decently well played by Hunter. I think putting Snorlax out first was probably a decent idea. knowing that Hector's hardest hitting Pokemon are like those top tier special attackers in Charizard, and Regieleki, and Duraludon, and it's a little bit easier for Snorlax to get a safe belly drum up against some special attackers rather than physical ones. So yeah, game 1, yeah, Snorlax just went in. And then game 2, we didn't really get to see all of it. I do like how Hunter was playing in the beginning there. I do know that he ended up taking the rest of the game. I would have liked to see exactly how that happened, but that's okay. Looking at Hector's side, I do have to say I really like some of Hector's prep. I know he prepped pretty hard for the rain mode, which is why we saw the Choice Scarf Regieleki there. Only in Draft League can you ever see something as crazy as a Choice Scarf Regieleki. Because if the Kingdra's timid, it's going to be able to outspeed timid Regieleki in rain. So the Choice Scarf was a counter to that with Eerie Impulse, no less. So that was very cool to see. And I also really love the Sunny Day Klefki mode with Dragon coverage on the Charizard. That's another fantastic counter to rain mode with Kingdra. As far as Hector's prep goes, the only downside I really saw was maybe that he under prepped for Snorlax a bit. I think we've seen foul play from him on Klefki a couple of times before. This was the one time that he took it off of there in favor of a fairy move to hit the Kingdra, which is fair, but I think his prep for the Kingdra mode was hard enough already. I would have liked to see another foul play there, teched at least just to bop the Snorlax after it gets its belly drum boost, which it could still do after it was taunted from the Thundurus too. So that's maybe the only critique I have here, but otherwise, yeah, fun prep to see from Hector's end. Well played by Hunter.
Yeah, I can agree. This was a very interesting set. Hunter's team didn't necessarily look like it had the best matchup, but the Appleton in particular ended up matching up a lot better than I expected it to, and I think that had a lot to do with how well he did. Conceptually, it makes sense the more that you think about it, but I didn't really picture Appleton being the superstar in this matchup, but it decently walls Regieleki. It's got a negative matchup against Charizard, obviously, but it has enough bulk that it can probably survive something there, and then the Thundurus has a very good Charizard matchup. It is pretty good against Klefki and Vaporeon as well. It probably loses to Duraludon, but overall it's just bulky and annoying and has a tendency to stick around, and Hunter pivoted with it very well, and I thought the play was very solid out of the Appleton, and I wasn't really expecting that this week.
For sure, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, same.
But
and I mean, that was
ahead.
a good play on his end with Appleton, with the thick fat, because that helped him a little bit, I think, against Charizard, I think. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, I was going to move on to the next one, but yeah, that's absolutely true. The thick fat does give it that extra bulk into a fire-type move, which from a Charizard in the sun is still going to usually do a lot, but it does give it some survivability there as well. But looking at the next match, I don't have the full differential somewhere, so the spreads here are obviously rough estimates of what happened in this match, but I do sort of have the play-by-play of this match. But I think the most important thing to look at here is the sets that Maxwell ended up bringing. He's basically locked for playoffs. Actually, I think after this week, even with a loss, he did fully lock for playoffs. So he's doing some experimentation with his team, and that included a weakness policy weak armor Mandibuzz, but he did not reveal it Game 1. Game 1, he only showed Tailwind and Foul Play on it, and Toxic claimed that he still suspected that it was weakness policy with the Mandibuzz Mr. Rhyme lead Game 2, and then there was some suspect play around that, but overall the experimentation didn't work out the way that Maxwell would have wanted it to, so it ended up being pretty cut and dry for Toxic into a weird team, although Flygon with Dragon Dance did have some opportunities to really set up and go off, but it just didn't. It's a Flygon. Its stats just aren't quite good enough, but it came very close to actually looking like the amazing thing that we all thought it was when we watched the Ruby and Sapphire intro. But I don't know if either of you two have thoughts on this match, since there's not a video of it that exists, or if we can just move on.
Yeah, I don't have too many thoughts. I would have liked to see the game.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like there was some wacky stuff going on here, so that would have been fun to see. But yeah, without a game to watch, there's not really much to say.
Yeah, his file was corrupted because Toxic beat him that badly that it just corrupted the file through his computer. So it was unfortunate that we didn't actually get to see it. But I guess it's pretty fair to move on from here, since we haven't actually seen this match, and that's just sort of a brief play-by-play that we got from the participants of it.
I'm really proud of Clefairy, though. I just want to tell everybody. I mean, it really put some good work.
Yeah, it got like 20 kills, probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
But moving on to the last match, match number 7 of the week, and I think we can all agree this one was the match of the week. And Matt, why don't you give us a breakdown of this set?
Yeah, match of the week is very accurate. It's and I know that in your sort of weekly preview thing that you and Maxwell were doing, Dan, you guys had mentioned that this was the match to watch this week, and it's always nice when the match to watch really doesn't disappoint, and this one definitely didn't. It was a very, very good set, very close set. You can see by the differential there, this is one of those weird times where the winner ends up taking away a negative differential, because that's just how close the set was. It went to game 3, and even another weird thing here, just before I get into the actual match, is the sheer number of kills the Haxorus has here, which is really crazy for a game that you lost for one of your mons to have that many kills. Usually if we see something like that, X Pokemon has some huge amount of kills, it's because they swept that mon swept the other team, but that's just a good illustration of how close this set really was. So game 1, it mostly came down to Dina's Trick Room mode, which I think Ryan was aware that he had kind of a bad matchup against, and his lead was actually very, very good for exactly what Dina decided to go with, which was that Clefable Runerigus lead, just to try to guarantee the Trick Room. And Ryan ended up going without Psychic Terrain on the Indeedee so that it could fake out the Clefable to allow the Haxorus to taunt the Runerigus and stop Trick Room. Excellent prep. I love that a lot. There was some repositioning over the next few turns. Haxorus ended up Dynamaxing, and I think really the mistake that Ryan made was not KOing the Clefable soon enough, and Dina was able to reposition with the Clefable and Runerigus again. The Rotom had gotten knocked out by this point, and Clefable and Runerigus were able to get Trick Room up, so that because the Clefable was able to actually redirect the Haxorus that turn. And then in the late game, Escavalier and Runerigus just went in. And Escavalier, you can see there, doesn't really have too many kills. Runerigus actually has more kills there, but I think this doesn't really do justice to how much work Escavalier was putting in, because in not only game 1 but also game 3, Escavalier in Dina's Trick Room mode, Escavalier was doing the most amount of damage. He was doing the most work, but Runerigus ended up just picking off kills here and there with the Earthquake that Dina teched on there as well. So don't let these kill death ratios fool you. It was mostly the Escavalier, but credit has to be given to Runerigus' Earthquake tech as well. Going into game 2, this one is a little bit more simple. Dina she sort of overcorrected, I think, and thought that Ryan was going to go in harder to stop the Trick Room mode, and so she decided to leave Escavalier Runerigus on the bench, even though that was basically her ticket to victory in game 2, and in game 1. And the Moltres and Haxorus just proved a little bit too much for her. She ended up maxing the Rotom. Moltres kept clicking Snarl, so it was having a really hard time getting any offense off, and the Cinderace hit into a Protect and went down without doing anything. So that was pretty much all of her offense right there with the Cinderace and Rotom, and they just weren't putting in enough work due to the Snarl mainly. So Ryan ended up taking that game there, and then in game 3, Dina came back with the Trick Room mode, knowing that it worked game 1. She lost without it game 2. Makes sense to bring it back. And she ended up setting Trick Room twice. Once for the Escavalier with the Dynamax Escavalier in the early game, and then after that went down, she was able to reset it with Rotom doing a lot of work in Trick Room as well. You don't normally expect Rotom to be a big offensive threat in Trick Room, but it did really well here just because Ryan didn't have a whole lot of slow stuff. Marowak, you can see there, didn't end up hitting the field in any of these games, and that would have been the thing that could at least move before Rotom in Trick Room. Everything else was faster. So the second Trick Room in game 3 with the Rotom was able to give her a nice speed advantage, and then I think toward the end, when she predicted the Max Guard on the Haxorus and doubled up into the Galarian Moltres for the KO, that kind of sealed things, and Rotom and Clefable were able to close things out from there. So that's my analysis of the game. Dan, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, short story long, this was a very nice set played by two super quality players. I'm not exactly sure what the Sneasel was doing, and even after watching it, I still don't know what the Sneasel was going to be doing in that set, but I'm glad to see that it did come after a transaction that I found to be suspect last week when the Noivern was dropped for the Sneasel. The Razor Shell tech on the Escavalier was very cool, knowing that Marowak and Blaziken are two things that Ryan brings a lot. I do really like that Razor Shell tech. Late game, I question Ryan's decision-making a little in the last few turns, going for the attack into the Rotom rather than the attack into the Clefable. I think his out was to attack the Clefable and hope for a crit because the Haxorus was burned instead of attacking the Rotom. It's not a great out, but I think that was closer to his out. So I think there was a little bit of questionable decision-making there. I know he says that he was calling a Protect there as well, but I still think attacking the Clefable and going for the crit is the correct move there. But overall, a lot of really cool sets came out from both teams. Dina was playing, so Cinderace, Rotom, Clefable, Escavalier, and Runerigus all came, as per our typical arrangement. But I thought it was a great set. There's no real way around it. There's no real critique there. Haxorus did work, but Dina was able to mitigate it just enough twice that she was able to pull out the win, and that's all you can really ask her to do. What are your thoughts, John?
Yeah, same as your guys. I don't have much more to say than that. It was a really cool set, and I mean, Dina ended up clinching it at the end, especially. I mean, the burn on the Haxorus was huge. I mean, it was just kind of a slow grind until the end of game 3 after that, I think. And yeah, I mean, yeah, the targeting was kind of, I mean, you know, that's where you get into those mind games, right? It's like, okay, if I'm going to really clinch this game, I have to do something risky. And then sometimes it ends up, of course, being too meta is one of the phrases I use, is like, you're like, okay, they're going to do a Protect. And of course, I mean, sometimes you miss out on the obvious stuff. But I mean, it was wild, So, I mean, even looking at both of the teams, I mean, there's not really a clear winner, when you initially see it, because they both prepped so well,
Yeah, absolutely. I do think this is just a solid match. It is going to have some major playoff ramifications, though. Such a narrow win, but it is still a win. And with that, let's take a look at what the overall standings look like after 8 weeks. Everyone has played 7 matches now, and the playoff races are really starting to take shape. even though it says Grant has been eliminated from playoffs, I even think that he has not technically been fully eliminated yet, because if he wins his last 2 matches against me and Jess, he could theoretically pass you, John, and Hector into that 5th spot, into the wildcard spot. So no one has been eliminated yet, and no one has clinched a bye with a top 3 seed yet, although Maxwell is very close to that. He just needs one more win or a loss by each of Burst, Dark, and Hector. But going into the end of the season, obviously that race for the 3rd spot in the red division is going to be very tight, along with the race for the 5th spot in the red division, which honestly the race for 3 through 5 is going to be very tight between Burst, Dark, Hector, and John. And then in the blue division, Matt, you and I, along with Charles and Dina, are separated by 1 game, and between the 3 of us, one of us doesn't get a bye. And it could be any of us. Like, you have the toughest remaining schedule, so you picking up a loss one of those 2 weeks, if the other 3 of us win both of our games, could potentially leave you on the outside looking in, even though you've had a fairly dominant season up until this point. But I think that just speaks to the strength of the top end of that division right now. But do you guys have any closing thoughts on the standings or where we are in the season right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's looking at the blue division. This is still it's still just as crazy as it was. I mean, I don't think much has changed in each division, because everybody's competing against everybody in their own division, and when everyone in one division wins and everyone in the other division loses, like what happened this week, you're pretty much in the same spot relative to everybody else in your own division. But I even though nothing's really changed, it's crazy to see how the race is still this tight after a good 2-3 weeks. I mean, a couple weeks ago we were looking at you, Dan, and Charles and Dina at 3-2, all fighting for to stay. To move ahead above the others, and all 3 of you guys ended up winning 2 weeks in a row, and you're still, the 3 of you in particular, are in the tightest race for seeding I might have ever seen in a draft league. So I just have to say the same thing as before. I want to see how this plays out. That's about all I've got.
Yeah, same. I mean, everything's just it's nuts, how close it is. I mean, it's up for grabs. So it's been a crazy season so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we close it out, John, did you have a joke for us this week?
Oh, yeah. Well, let me get into character here.
Go for it.
All right. Well, howdy, y'all. So, what do y'all call a blaziken that's lost its blaze? Well, that's just a regular old Icken.
Well, thank you very much for that, John. Thank you for sharing with the class. I found that to be both enlightening. I feel both better and stronger as a human because of it, and I believe the species will prevail, even if mere moments ago I may have doubted it. But thank you for reinstilling my faith in humanity. But with that being said, on behalf of Matt and John, this has been Dan, and we are part 2 of your weekly breakdown this week. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.